Dialogue can create tension, describe something or someone, and show a conversation. For example, in Sunday in the Park, it says, the only possible outcome, continued reasonably, would have been what? My glass broken, perhaps a tooth or two replaced, a couple of days work missed, and for what? For justice, for truth? Of course, she repeated. She quickened her steps. She wanted only to get home, to busy herself with familiar tasks. Perhaps the feeling glued like heavy plaster on her heart would be gone of all the stupid, despicable bullies, she thought, pulling harder on Larry's. This shows the tension between the two characters. Another example of this is in Sunday in the Park when it says, don't do that, little boy, she sharpened, leaning forward on the bench. You mustn't throw sand. The man on the bench moved his mouth as if to spit again, but instead he spoke. He did not look at her, but at the only boy. Blah. But at the boy only. You go right ahead, Joe, he said loudly. Throw all you want. This here is a public sandbox. This reveals how the characters are stubborn and how dialogue can create tension. Description can create tension and help develop ideas in the story. It can also give the readers an idea of what is happening in more detail than with just dialogue. It can really make a scene be expressed in a way that the reader may not interpret on their own. For example, in Sunday at the Park, it says, it was still warm in the late afternoon sun, and the city noises came muffled through the trees in the park. She put her book down on the bench, removed her sunglasses, and sighed contentedly. Morton was reading the Times Magazine section, one arm flung around her shoulder. Their 3-year-old son, Larry, was playing in the sandbox. A faint breeze framed her hair softly against her cheek. This shows the setting of the story and supports the mother's view of the scene. Another example is when, in Sunday in the Park, it says, the only other people left in the playground were 2 women, a little girl on roller skates, leaving now through the gate, and the man on the bench a few feet away. He was a big man, and her seemed to be taking up the whole bench as he held the Sunday comics close to his face. She supposed he was the child's father. He did not look up from his comics, but spat one definitely out of the corner of his mouth. She turned her eyes away. This gives the reader an idea of what the man looks like and what else is going on in the setting.
The setting creates a theme for a story. It gives the reader a better look at the story. Description and dialogue can create the setting for the story. For example, when in Sunday in the Park it says, 3-year-old Larry was playing in the sandbox. A faint breeze fanned her hair softly against her cheek. It was 5:30 Sunday afternoon. The small playground tucked away in the corner of a park was all but deserted. The swings and seesaws stood motionless and abandoned. The slides were empty, and only in the sandbox were 2 little boys squatting side by side. It also says that there is only 2 women and a girl roller skating, and the man on the bench seems to be taking up the whole bench. Both of these examples are of description and how it can create setting.
The example shown above is a goal setting called revealing actions. The author accomplishes this goal with the technique of dialogue in this story. Looking at example 1, if you can't discipline this child, I will, Morton snapped, making a move towards the boy. But her voice stopped him. She was shocked to hear it, thin, cold, and penetrating with contempt. Indeed, she heard herself say, you and who else? This dialogue reveals that the woman and Morton have an underlying issue, a broken marriage. In the second example, he did not look at her, but at the boy only. You go right ahead, Joe, he said loudly. Throw all the sand you want. This here is a public sandbox. This reveals that the man isn't someone of kindness, and we know that the man is a bully.
When introducing characters, you use dialogue and description. The importance of this is not only does it help the reader understand the story, it helps the reader feel the emotions that the character does. In some of the examples, it says, turn his fine lean face toward the man, smiling the shy, apologetic smile he might have offered a student when pointing out an error in their thinking. When he spoke to the man, it was with his unusual reasonableness. In the second example, it says, they must have the sun more often. Morton was so city pale from being cooped up all week inside that gray factory-like university. This shows where the character is, what they are doing, and it also shows the physical appearance.